Other smart drivers, defensive driving, smarter defensive driving. Put in place strategy, skills, and information that will significantly reduce your chances of being involved in an accident. That's what we're talking about. Some interesting statistics about the United States of America, and I have heard this before. I had a smart driver here on the channel leave a comment about Australia versus the United States. The United States has a traffic death rate of 12 and a half people per 100,000 kilometers, whereas other countries, which I looked up, Germany, Australia, Canada is 5 traffic deaths per 100,000 inhabitants, and Australia is 4.5, and then Germany is 3.3 people. And I've heard the statistic before that the United States of America has a very high traffic death rate. And it was interesting because I looked it up. And why the United States has a much higher traffic fatality rate than other countries in the world. And number one, which I disagree with, is speeding. All the roads they claim in the United States of America are designed for speed. And again, I go back to the fact that it's the mismanagement of speed and space. But it does beg the question of what is it about the United States of America that causes its traffic death to be astronomically higher than other countries in the world? I mean, we're talking about a traffic death rate in the United States of America that is 300% higher than Australia and 400% higher than what it is in Germany when you take the number of traffic deaths per 100,000 inhabitants. That's just a mind-boggling, incredible number. And one of the hypotheses was the United States of America is so reliant on the motor car that it does not have alternative forms of transportation. And I would argue that there is some validity to that in the fact that everybody, absolutely everybody in the United States of America drives. Now, the same could be said for Australia, because they do have a car culture and everybody drives in Australia because, again, it is low density population. It's not like Europe where you have alternative forms of transportation. You have trains and buses and those types of things. So there are other ways of transportation as well. The other theory put forth is that roads are not designed for different modes of transportation in the United States. And if you look at Twitter right now, look at the feeds that are coming across there, it's the "we hate cars" movement in terms of engineering design in cities and those types of things. So just interesting statistics to look at. And, I asked the question there, and nobody's answered the question yet, but are you more afraid of a shark attack, of dying in a shark attack, or are you more afraid of being killed in a car crash? Most people get into cars, but my thinking, I know personally, I'm more afraid of dying from a shark attack because, I just don't want to be chomped and torn to bits by a shark, but that's the reality. So that's what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about strategies, skills, and abilities that you can put in place to keep yourself safe and to significantly reduce your chances of being involved in a traffic crash. And we just wanted to talk about some of those traffic safety numbers. The other reason I asked you the question about the shark attack versus the car crash is owing to the fact it's about risk perception. How do we perceive risk to ourselves? How do we manage risk? Because most of us have an optimism bias that when we get into a car, we don't think or don't believe that we're going to get into a car crash because cars empower us, move us, allow us to get from point A to point B, do our tasks, run around and those types of things. In addition, as cars become more technologically advanced with backup cameras, proximity sensors, blind spot detectors, lane assist, adaptive cruise control, we become more and more relaxed in the vehicle. And of course, we have the reduction of road noise in the vehicle. So they become our second most personal space next to our house. We feel comfortable when we get in our car, and we are not thinking about that when we're driving. All right, so there's a few people here already. Carrie's here. Hello from Minnesota. She says they're going to get snow there again tomorrow. I know that Carrie is terrified of driving in the snow. And the other interesting statistic about the United States of America, somebody posted this morning because I was talking about risk perception and talking about people are more afraid of driving in snow and ice, or rather driving on snow and ice, than they are of driving in tornadoes, hurricanes, or driving in forest fires, because there was a post on LinkedIn of a truck driver driving through forest fires in Texas. And I said, you know, people are more afraid of driving on snow and ice than they are driving in hurricanes and tornadoes and forest fires, hurricanes, and tornadoes. And somebody said to me, well, you know, there are people who drive in snow all the time and it's perilous and, you know, it's dangerous and you're going to die and crash into the, you know, ditch and those types of things. You know, if you're driving in Florida or you live in Florida, you're more likely to drive in a hurricane or be confronted by a hurricane as opposed to driving in snow and ice. Same thing with living in North Texas or living in Oklahoma. There's more chance of you being, you know, driving in a tornado or high winds because you're in Tornado Alley as opposed to driving on snow and ice. If you live here where I live in the interior of British Columbia, it's more likely that you're going to be driving in the smokes of forest fires or forest fires on roads in the summertime than you are in snow and ice, especially if you're down in the valleys here in the mountains, because we don't get very much snow here. Minimal snow in the wintertime. So it depends on where you live as to the driving conditions that you might encounter. There you go. Paul, how are you, my friend? A tailgater that will potentially hit you from behind, and which drivers should be aware is identifying a dangerous driver like Paul Bernardo in my thoughts. Okay. Not sure it's quite on the same level as Paul Bernardo, the serial killer. Paul Bernardo was evil, just pure evil. I would put forth the thinking that people who tailgate other people, it's ignorance. It's not malicious on any part of what they're doing. It's sheer ignorance. And I'll tell you a story about that. I went to get the vehicle fixed because the exhaust broke on the buggy and took it to my mechanic, and he was telling me that his teenage daughter had got into her first crash. She was driving down a road. It's on the northwest, the west end of Vernon here, and it's out in kind of the country on a 2-lane road. And she was driving along, speeding, you know, not speeding. She was driving above the posted speed limit, and she's got allergies. And she sneezed, and as she sneezed, the car in front of her stopped because there was a car in front of that car that was turning left, and unfortunately she couldn't get it stopped in time, and she rear-ended the car in front of her. And he said, oh, she was speeding, and he was claiming that she was speeding, and I said, no, she wasn't speeding. I said she was following too close. This is the reason for the crash. If you know you have allergies and you're going to sneeze at any time when you're driving, then you need to increase your following distance so that you have time for something like that to happen while you're driving. And this is the point that I make about distracted driving, because this was on the list of reasons why the United States crash rate is so high, is because of distracted driving. And advocates against distracted driving will continue to say you must focus on driving 24/7. You know, every second that you're in the vehicle, you need to be completely 130% focused on driving. It's an impossibility. You cannot. We just, our mind wanders. All kinds of things happen while we're driving that we're distracted. So you need to increase following distance in front so you can be distracted. There are times that you can be distracted from driving because, as I've talked about before, our attention to the driving task ebbs and flows. All right? So we need that buffer of space to keep ourselves safe when something crazy inside the car happens. Status, dangerous offender means dangerous driving, correct pronouncement. Okay, not following that, but anyway. Null, how do you find the best position for your side mirrors? Okay, Corey is here. Corey is the moderator. Corey will put up the video for you on 9 steps to adjust the controls inside your vehicle, adjusting the seat, adjusting the mirrors, and that will show you how to do that, and that will definitely help you out with adjusting the mirrors. 502, I'm actually going tomorrow morning to take my driving test in North Carolina. I've got a vehicle that's insured and registered, but I don't have a supervised driver that can drive with me to the DMV. 502, you're going to have to find somebody to go with you. You got a neighbor, a grandparent, anybody with a license that can take you to the DMV. Don't show up at the DMV without a supervised driver, you know, because you don't want the examiner, the tester, finding out that you came by yourself. You know, if they do find out, you're not going to pass your driver's test. I can tell you right off the bat. All right, Patty, I adjust my mirrors in my semi where I can't see the sides of the trailer unless I move my head more, and this keeps me more alert, and you're constantly scanning your surroundings. Flying Patty, I love you, my friend. I absolutely love you, because yes, you have to be constantly moving your head in a big truck. And actually, I was writing an article today about turning in big trucks, because there's been so much dash cam footage lately of big trucks turning and getting into crashes with cars. And I wanted to talk about defensive turning in a big truck, because there are ways to do that to keep yourself safe. And it's exactly what you're talking about in terms of adjusting your mirrors. So you're always scanning, you're always looking, because there are blind areas around your vehicle. Had another smart driver, an older gentleman, saying that shoulder checking is a relic of the past, kind of like downshifting in a manual transmission. I could not disagree more. Shoulder checking is not a relic of the past, and it is absolutely more important now in this day and age of just crazy number of crashes in the United States, and all the technology in our vehicles. It is much more important to be shoulder checking and signaling every time you change directions of the vehicle, especially in the arena of social driving, where other people are doing all kinds of crazy things. Elevator fan, if you brake check a tailgater, will you be at fault for the crash if a crash occurs? Elevator fan, that's a question I just can't answer. It's up to the personal injury lawyers. Once it goes to court, they will, you know, the courts will decide, the courts or the lawyers will decide who's at fault. Now, most of the time, it's the fault of the tailgating driver, but that's not always the case. There are court cases, and I could cite you court cases where there has been fault assigned to the leading driver. So know that it's not cut and dried when it comes to fault and right of way. Once the lawyers get involved, and once it goes to once it goes to the courts, it's going to be a decision based on expert witness testimony. All right. Carrie, can we get a link to your article you just wrote? Carrie, absolutely. Once I get it posted, I just got to get it posted up on the website here. Once I get it posted, absolutely. Definitely have a look at that as well. Carrie, there's also another blog post that you might be interested in. It's taking care of your tires on your vehicle and inspections and maintenance and those types of things. So it's kind of scheduled maintenance. It's on the rickaugustphd.com website. Corey might be able to find the link for you for that as well. Paul, by the way, got my highway freedom of driving on the 403, 410 from home to work on Saturday morning. So you passed your driver's test, did you, Paul? That is awesome news, my friend. Congratulations. Corey's put up the video on shoulder checking, and that goes over the importance of that. Marianne, yes, I got my commercial license in 2015 and found all your videos helpful. Marianne, that is awesome, my friend. Marianne, are you still working as a commercial driver, a CDL driver? Damon, many salutations. Glad to see you. Defensive driving for me has always been a combination of situational vigilance and temperance when interpreting the data. Having said all that, you should have fun at the same time. Yes, in fact, that is very true, Damon. Observing, interpreting traffic patterns, and predicting the actions of individual road users according to those traffic patterns. And you want to try and reduce the number of unpredictable actions on the roadway. And I was talking about this in terms of turning a semi truck. There are so many drivers that are turning right, and they'll be on a multi-lane road, and then they'll swing left out into the other lane, and the other traffic's like, what the heck is the truck doing? Because, they're not looking at signals. They're not, most drivers are not paying attention to trucks or know anything about trucks. So you know, all that happens, and it's up to the truck driver to be professional and be as predictable as possible and minimize the impediment on other drivers. And that's what I'm talking about in the article. Marianne, I'm working in the office now, and excellent. That's great. Carrie O just got new Yokohama tires today at Discount Tires. That's awesome. Carrie, new tires are always great because it's kind of, you know, that saying, it's where the rubber meets the road sort of thing. Paul, not yet because my road test is in April coming up. At least I'm regaining my experience. Okay, so did you go out with a driving instructor on the highway? Is that how you got around that? Because in Ontario, if you've got a learner's permit, you can't be on the 401 highways, the 400 highways, unless you're with a driving instructor. All right, excellent. Corey's put up that video. Marianne, you as well, my friend. Thank you for dropping by. Always a pleasure. All the best. Be safe. Okay, so I'm going to get over to the presentation here because it's a little bit longer than usual. It's probably 15 minutes tonight. So because I wanted to show you the actual smarter defensive driving model and go through all the stuff that I talk about in terms of space management, space in front, speed management, observation, communication. I wanted to talk about social driving more and give you more information about that and the challenges and problems you face every day when you're out on the roadways and driving. Jacob, I am a G1 license holder. I'm scared of changing lanes because every time I change my lane and look at my blind spot and mirror, I swerve to the other lane, which is dangerous. Okay, so what's happening, Jacob, is when you're shoulder checking, you're taking too long doing your shoulder checks. You're too slow. That's why the car is going in the direction that you're looking. So you have to speed up your shoulder checks, okay? It's just a quick 90-degree turn in the direction that you're going, all right? And that will correct that problem of moving the steering wheel when you're looking and shoulder checking. No, because I'm well experienced. Okay, Paul, that's awesome. Flying Patty, at least once a week I will narrate my driving out loud, calling out hazard signs, etc. Guy with 4 million miles got me onto it. That is brilliant. That's a great technique there, Flying Patty, that somebody helped you out with that. Yep, definitely. Hazards and obstructions and naming those as you're going along and keeping awareness of what's going on when you're driving is definitely going to keep you alert and tune you into things that you may think are, you know, not a hazard, not an obstruction. And then because traffic is dynamic and always changing, that hazard, that's something that wasn't really going to interfere with your driving, is now something that you need to pay attention to. So smarter defensive driving, let's talk about that. We're talking about that. The smarter defensive driving defines the problem that you face as a driver. Social driving, the problems you face every day. People speeding, following too close, tailgating, right? And we talked about some traffic statistics here in the United States of America per 100,000 people. The United States of America is 300% higher than what the traffic deaths are in Australia, and it's 400% than what it is in Germany. Even though Germany has the Autobahn, it's still really high in the United States of America. So smarter defensive driving, and the tools to keep yourself safe in the smarter defensive driving model are space management, speed management, observation, and communication. Put those 4 tools in your toolbox to keep yourself safe. For those of you new to Smart Drive Test, my name is Rick August. I was a truck driver in the 1990s. I hauled freight between Ontario, Canada, and the United States. Became a licensed commercial driving instructor in 1997. The province of Ontario is a little backwards. You're certified to be an air brakes instructor and a truck driver instructor, but you're licensed to be a car driver instructor. So I went around it backwards. I got certified first, and then I became a licensed commercial driving instructor. While I was going to university in Australia doing my doctorate degree, I drove buses for Greyhound and one of the regional bus lines there as well. Earned my doctorate in legal history in 2006 from the University of Melbourne in Australia. My discipline, my expertise is legal history, which is the study of policing, courts, and prisons. 2015, 10 years ago, crazy to think, I started the online YouTube channel, which helps new drivers get a license and helps drivers to become safer, smarter drivers. And if you want to know more about me, you can check out the online YouTube channel, check out the autobiography over at the Smart Drive Test website. The basic conflict in traffic, there's always a fundamental basic conflict. The basic conflict is crashes versus congestion. And essentially what we're talking about, on the one hand, we're talking about traffic safety, we're talking about engineering, education, and enforcement, we're talking about keeping people safe. But on the other hand, we're talking about congestion. We're talking about traffic flow. How fast can we travel? How many vehicles can we move along a section of roadway per hour? But those two things are at odds, and we can see that right now in terms of reducing speed limits within cities in the United States of America to reduce pedestrian fatalities. And you can see that in the boroughs of New York City, where they're reducing traffic speed limits to 25 miles an hour, and most other US cities are now following suit in terms of reducing their speed limits within the cities. The challenge with implementing traffic safety is that most drivers will crash 2 to 3 times in their lifetime. They will crash once every 15 to 17 years. So they will go along for a long period of time doing what they have been doing, believing that what they're doing is safe because they're not crashing, but what they're doing may cause a crash in 12 years, 15 years, even 16 years, and there's a culmination of events that come together that cause the crash that they never thought about before because they've never taken any professional training or upgrading to their skills as a driver. All right, what is defensive driving? Defensive driving is putting in place strategies and skills that will compensate for when you make mistakes and when other people make mistakes, because when we're driving, we always make mistakes. And as well, we want to create conditions that most of the time we can respond accordingly to what's going on in the driving environment. And we do that by creating space in front of our vehicle. You can always control the space in front of your vehicle. Space buys you time, time buys you options, options prevent crashes. All right, social driving, I've talked about this. This is the problem that you face every day when you're out on the roadways. What is social driving? Social driving is people following too close, stopping too close in a queue of traffic, not stopping completely at stop-signed intersections, speeding, which is seen again and again and again in every reason for traffic crashes. Speeding will be listed as number 1, but it is not that simple, okay? It's the mismanagement of speed and space. The reasons for crashes are failing to yield, following too close, and the mismanagement of speed and space. All right, and the number 1 crash in North America, as you've heard me say before, again and again, is rear end crashes. Even more so than reported windshield damage to insurance companies. So that tells you how bad it is. Drivers, for the most part, are emotional. They're reactionary, they're retaliatory. If one driver is driving in front and the other driver is driving behind, and the driver behind feels that the person in front is going too slow, they will tailgate them to tell them that they're going too slow. And then the person in front is being tailgated, then they'll slow down even more to retaliate against the person behind them. And it's this whole cat and mouse thing going on there. And it's a dangerous situation. We police other people on the roadways. If people are going slow in front of me, I'm going, what are you doing? Come on, at least do this, the posted speed limit. Okay, hurry up and go. You're in my way. That is the foundational characteristic of social driving. Get thereitis. Okay, and it's not just driving. That get thereitis is that we got to hurry up and get to our destination as quickly as possible. Airline pilots, ship captains, train engineers, we're all the same. We have to get to our destination as quickly as possible. Driving is a social activity. We have to get along with other people. And how do we do that? What are the tools that we can put in our toolbox when we're driving to keep ourselves safe? Okay, I got ahead of myself. The causes of crashes are following too close, failing to yield, failing to give up the right of way, and the mismanagement of speed and space. And keep in mind, when you're driving, you can be right or you can be dead right. Space management, minimum safe distance between your vehicle and other vehicles in the roadway. And the number 1 place that you can always control space is in front of your vehicle. You always have that 2 to 3 second following distance. Retired, how are you, my friend? Always a pleasure for you to join us and be part of the live stream. Thank you for tuning in. Okay, stopping 1 vehicle length back from the car in front of you when you're stopped in traffic. That is defensive posturing against being rear-ended. And your landmark for that is being able to see the tires of the vehicle in front of you making clear contact with the roadway. And minimum safe distance from pedestrians, cyclists, and other vulnerable road users. 3 feet, 1 meter from vulnerable road users on the roadway. Because if you're not near anything, it's less likely that you're going to hit something. Okay? Turning, lane changes, and roundabouts. When you're turning on multi-lane roads, turn right lane to right lane, left lane to left lane. And you could just go down to a big intersection that has multi-lane roads, and you watch the traffic. Half of the people turning on a multi-lane road will turn right, and they will drift over into the left-hand lane. Without signaling, they'll just turn and drift at the same time. Changing lanes and turning are 2 separate maneuvers, and you want to do one and then do the other one, okay? Drive in the spaces between the other vehicles when you're turning or going around curves or going through a roundabout. Don't drive beside other vehicles, all right? Watch the video this week with a tractor trailer turning right, 2 right turning lanes. The truck driver moved right out into the 3rd lane of the left turning lane of oncoming traffic, and then turned right beside 2 cars. Well, the lead car on his blind side decided that they were going to change lanes in front of the truck and ran into him. Had the truck driver just slowed down a little bit and pulled in behind the cars, there wouldn't have been a crash. The driver would have prevented the crash. So when you're turning, going around curves and corners, don't turn in beside other vehicles. Turn in the spaces in front or behind those vehicles, all right? Semi-trucks. If there's semi-trucks in the roundabout, stay behind them or get in front of them. Same thing when merging out onto a highway, freeway, or an interstate. If there's a semi-truck in that right-hand lane and you're in the merge lane, just plan to get in behind the semi-truck. Once you get in behind it and you get situated out on the freeway, then move over into the other lane. Okay? And keep in mind, traffic laws no more prevent crashes than criminal law prevents crime. It's there to keep us safe, but it's not something that you need to rely on to prevent a crash when you're driving. Speed management. You need to understand the different speeds of different road user groups. Cyclists, for example, are doing 15 to 20 miles an hour, whereas you're doing 30 miles an hour. So there's a 10 mile an hour speed differential. Pedestrians, 6 miles an hour. You're doing 30 miles an hour. Therefore, there's a 24 mile an hour speed differential. If you can understand the general speeds of different road user groups, this is going to help you out in terms of managing space in front and around your vehicle and keep yourself safe on the roadway. Speed controls space, okay? You control the accelerator to have space and have minimum safe distance between your vehicle and other vehicles on the roadway. The throttle, the accelerator controls space around your vehicle, not the brake. If you're on the brake all the time, when you're driving straight forward to control space between your vehicle and the vehicle in front, you're too close. Increase your following distance. Different road user groups that you're dealing with and sharing road space with. Pedestrians, scooters and skaters, cyclists, motorcycles and snowmobile riders, depending on the season. Road users are going to change depending on the season. Cars and light trucks, buses, semi-trucks, trams, trains, and trolleys, depending on where you are in the world. If you're driving in Melbourne, Australia, they have trolleys. Trams, rather. If you're driving in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, they too have trams, okay? San Francisco has trams. Different places have different road user groups, okay? And then there's fixed objects. You're also sharing the roadway with fixed objects. Traffic islands that have signs, roadways, utility poles, bridge abutments, all kinds of instructions. And now we have the traffic engineers, the We Hate Cars world, where they're putting in traffic calming devices in residential areas, which is just something else for you to avoid while you're driving. All right? Traffic signs are to driving what instructions are to an IKEA cabinet. Only when things go wrong do you start looking at the traffic signs and reading them. Okay, observation, having a forward scanning pattern in place. Far down the road, in instrument panel, far down the road, center mirror, far down the road, your side mirrors. Okay, shoulder checking, shoulder checking, shoulder checking. And again, I have to write another article about the importance of shoulder checking. Blind areas around our cars and vehicles are not static. They don't stay the same, okay? They're changing depending on where our vehicle is pointed, what hazards and obstructions are along the roadway, and it is important, as Patty was saying, that you need to adjust your mirrors so that you're moving your head, you're looking, and you're observing when you're driving to keep yourself safe. Okay, reversing, use all your tools. How many people now, unfortunately, technology, backup cameras. People are backing up, they're looking in their backup camera. They're not observing, they're not checking the blind areas on both sides of the vehicles when they're reversing. Okay, look for traffic signs. Traffic signs will give you information about where the road is going and where hazards and obstructions are. And the one sign that is the most prolific sign along our roadways is the hazard obstruction signs. And Corey will put up the video about that. Have a look at that for more information. Intersections, mapping intersections, tracking road users. Why? More than 40% of crashes happen at intersections, and it is the place where you are most likely to encounter vulnerable road users. So as you're approaching the intersection, what kind of intersection is it? Are there left turning lanes, right turning lanes? Where are the utility poles, the traffic signs? Where are the vulnerable road users, the cyclists, the pedestrians, and whatnot? Okay? Identify and locate intersections to keep yourself safe. MIT, not just a university in Boston, Massachusetts, okay? Mapping intersections, tracking road users. Driving environments. What are the different driving environments that you find yourself in, and what are the challenges you face in every one of these different driving environments? Residential, suburban, school areas, parks and green spaces, industrial, multi-lane cities, freeways, interstates, and motorways, different skill sets, different observation abilities that you need to have in place. Parking lots. The number of smart drivers that come back to me over the years and say, you don't need to signal in a parking lot. Actually, a parking lot is probably the place that you most need to signal. Because keep in mind, turn signals are not to tell other people that you're turning. Turn signals are to get the attention of other road users on the roadway so that they can help you out, because driving is a social activity. And you want to get the attention of other drivers so that they can take evasive action, because sometimes when we're driving, we make mistakes. 3 flashes on the signal, minimum, when you're changing directions of the vehicle. The first flash to get the attention of other drivers, the second flash for them to locate you, and the third flash for them to do something that helps you out. Either slow down, speed up, get out of your way, and whatnot. So it is even more important to signal in parking lots than it is anywhere else. Okay, mapping and tracking intersections, looking farther down the road. Don't be looking at the end of your hood while you're driving in a forward motion. Identifying road users and mapping their movement. And what impact is that going to have on vehicles around you? For example, you're driving along following another car, and the car in front of you is going to turn right, but there's a pedestrian on the sidewalk. That car has to come to a stop now to wait for the pedestrian. If you're not paying attention and don't identify the pedestrian on the sidewalk, you're thinking that that car is just going to turn and go around the corner into the service or shop that they're turning into. But now they're coming to a stop. You didn't maintain the minimum safe distance in front of your vehicle, and now unfortunately you've rear-ended that vehicle in front. Okay? What are the chances? Always be thinking, always be mapping and tracking. Are other road users going to cross my path of travel? Obstacles in front on left turns. And same thing for tractor trailer drivers when they're turning their vehicle. You want to keep obstacles and hazards in front of your vehicle and to the sight side, which is the driver's side of the vehicle. Left-hand turns. There's 2 schools of thinking in terms of left-hand turns. The first school of thinking is driving into the intersection as deep as you can. I don't teach that. It's not safe, because if you're not in the intersection, if something happens, you're not going to be in a car crash. I advocate waiting at the edge of the intersection. Your landmark for that, front steer tires on the front crosswalk line. When your gap presents itself on the other side of the intersection, the car in front of the gap on the other side of the intersection hits the crosswalk on the other side. You drive straight into the intersection, meet the gap, and turn in behind that vehicle. That way, any pedestrians or vulnerable road users on the cross street are in front of you as opposed to your side when you're sitting in the intersection. It puts you in a better defensive posturing situation. All right? And as I said, shoulder checking, the most critical driving habit that you can create and put in place when you're learning how to drive and keeping yourself safe after you get your license. Not shoulder checking is to driving. What not checking to see if a weapon is loaded is to gun safety. Why on any planet would you move a 3,000-pound vehicle at speed and not check to see whether there's a vulnerable road user in your blind areas around your vehicle? Okay, and Corey's put up the video on left-hand turns. Thank you for that, Corey. As well, Corey, there's also this more detailed course over at the Smart Drive Test website, the defensive driving course that goes over all of this. I have videos explaining every one of these in more detail, and you can look at that course and pick that up as well. Okay, communication. 5 ways that we communicate with other traffic. The position of the vehicle on the roadway and its speed relative to an intersection is going to indicate intent on the part of the driver. Okay, lights and signals, eye contact, hand gestures, and the horn. And remember, signals, turn signals, are to tell other drivers, other traffic that you wish to move over, not that you are going to move over. The last one, eye contact and hand gestures, work in combination. Oftentimes, if there's a pedestrian at the intersection, for example, and you're not sure what the pedestrian is going, you can wave them across if you're going to stop and wait for them. Okay, and then the horn, use the horn sparingly as a form of communication, because in this day and age, in most places, the horn is seen as a sign of aggression. Okay, proactive and predictable. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, drivers are emotional, they're retaliatory, and they're reactionary. Okay, the tailgating example that I gave you. We want to move from being retaliatory and reactionary when we're driving to moving to being predictable and being proactive on the roadways. We want to create space around our vehicles. We want to read traffic patterns and understand the actions of individual road users so that we can respond accordingly and keep ourselves safe when we're driving. Risk management is essentially what defensive driving is. It reduces the risk of us being involved in a traffic crash when we're driving. So it's not only preventing and avoiding problems, but it's also reducing the severity and the frequency in which we have traffic crashes. Okay? Proactive drivers manage the risks associated with driving, all the problems of social driving. The number one crash in North America is rear end crashes. And if you put in place space in front, you put in place stopping back, the habit, you put in that habit of always having a 2 to 3 second following distance, and you put in place the habit of always stopping back 1 vehicle length from the car in front of you when you're stopped in traffic, those are going to protect you. Those driving habits are going to protect you from being rear-ended by other traffic pattern. Of course, it's always about being vigilant. As one smart driver said here before, it's not about hit and quit it. You come up to the traffic light and you stop and you sit there and you're not doing anything. No, you are doing something. You're watching your center mirror, watching the traffic come up behind you, and then if they're coming up too fast, you can drive out and around the vehicle in front of you and you can prevent being rear-ended. Okay, safer, smarter drivers. We want to help you and facilitate you making the transition from being reactionary, retaliatory to becoming proactive and predictable drivers. We want to expand your scope to become safer, smarter drivers and significantly reduce your chances of being involved in a crash. So we talked about the problems of driving, social driving, people speeding, following too close, risky maneuvers, driving distracted, driving inebriated, driving drunk, driving without a license, driving without insurance, because if you don't have a license and you're driving without insurance. All right, so this is the problem that you're coping with and dealing with every time you go out on the roadways. You're dealing with social driving. The tools that you can put in your toolbox: space management, creating that habit of always having a 2 to 3 second following distance, stopping back in traffic 1 vehicle length when you're stopped in a queue of traffic. Speed management. Speed is always second to space management and having that minimum safe distance between your vehicle and other road users on the roadway. Communication and observation and intersections. Identifying and locating intersections, mapping intersections and tracking road users at the intersection. Do this Put these skills in place, and you will definitely move from being reactionary and retaliatory when you're driving to being proactive and predictable, and significantly reducing your chances of being involved in a crash. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Evan, Paul, do you believe the Ontario government removing bicycle lanes from municipalities, it will remove congestion? Paul, yes, I do. Because roads can't be for everybody. It's either for cars or it's for bicycles. And my thinking on that is, if you want roadways to service bicycles, then make some roadways in Toronto that are just for bicycles. Make some roadways in Toronto that are just for cars. And I am not opposed to removing bicycle lanes. We've had construction here where I live where they put in bicycle lanes, and they're absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. They've simply narrowed the road and put in bicycle lanes, and nobody's using the bicycle lanes because they go like this. Up and down, and they're all bumpy. Who the heck wants to ride a bicycle on one of those? You know, I consider myself a professional cyclist. I wouldn't use them. I just ride on the roadway. Evan, to know if you came to a complete stop, the line should disappear under the front bumper. Also with drifts over into the right lane, elevator fan. Yeah. Maybe just might quietly suggest to your mom, elevator there, that, that's not safe. When turning left, wait to steer till your hood is aligned with the center of the road. And when it's turning right, steer when your hood is aligned with the curb or edge. Actually, Evan, when you're in line, so when you're turning right, when you're in line with the curb, when your body is in line with the curb, that's just an easier landmark when you're turning. All right, excellent. You might need to take evasive action if someone in the next lane is using only one hand on the side towards you because the sign is drifting. Beware of signs of drifting. Oh yes, people drifting when they're turning right and left on multi-lane roads. Absolutely, yes. Epic, one more thing, road signs between North America and the rest of the world are different because the US has its own standards. The rest of the world uses Vienna Convention signs. Importantly, these signs in North America are based on the US standard, while the rest of the world uses Vienna Convention standard road signs and got to know the shapes and colors to be safe. Yes, and Epic, the other piece about that, I mean, I've driven in Europe, I've driven in Australia, and the signs are self-explanatory for the most part. If anybody's going to a different country, I mean, you may want to pick up the driver's manual or look it up online. Most of these driving manuals are online now. You can look them up online and have a look at the road signs and see if there are any that you don't understand. As I said, it's intuitive. It's fairly straightforward. If you know the traffic signs in the United States and in Canada, you can go to Europe, you can go to Australia, and you can drive around, and the traffic signs are more or less the same. It's fairly straightforward. Damon, there are roadways here in San Antonio that would be perfect for city buses or civilian vehicles, but not both. Damon, yeah, you're absolutely right. And on that subject of roadways for just one type of vehicle, when I lived in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, which is our federal capital here, they had roadways just for transit buses. They were just for transit buses, which was, I thought in my mind, somebody who was taking public transit at the time, was absolutely magic. And as well, the freeway, the main freeway through Ottawa as well, had a bus lane that was just for buses. And, rush hour traffic in the afternoon when all the bureaucrats were getting off work and going to the outer suburbs where they lived and those types of things. The bus is like tearing up the side of the road, up the side of the freeway at 50 miles an hour, and the rest of the traffic is, you're sitting in bumper to bumper traffic, which as a person, that wants to get somewhere, me personally, that just encourages me to take the bus, because I'm like, why would I sit in bumper to bumper traffic when I can get on the transit bus and be home in half the time as it would in my car? I'm not sitting in my car idling along in bumper to bumper traffic when the bus is tearing along up the freeway at 50 miles an hour, right? So yeah, if we need to plan cities better, and I'm on board with the thinking that in the United States, the reason that the crash rate is so high is owing to the fact that it is a car-centered society. Everybody drives. And pedestrians and vulnerable road users in the United States of America in cities, I mean, there's all kinds of information and studies that are coming out now to show that it's pedestrians and vulnerable road users who are at risk in the United States of America because the road infrastructure is just for cars. It's not for pedestrians. It's not for people on bicycles. But you need to reconceptualize the entire city in order to make them safer for pedestrians and for cyclists and those types of things. And when I was in China, in Beijing, for example, I mean, there were pedestrian crosswalks that went, it was a bridge over the roadway, and there was absolutely no other way to get through the intersection. They had it so that you were corralled, high fences and those types of things that you absolutely had to go across this pedestrian crosswalk, which makes it safer. But, it's a little bit out of your way as a pedestrian, but this is what happens, right? That they make this road infrastructure that keeps pedestrians and other vulnerable road users safe. Epic, for drivers, there are motorcycles and cyclists. Watch out for cars because they might not see you when you are pulling for bicycles, especially trailing. I would stop to see because cars are fast. Yes, absolutely. And the other piece that I've talked about previously is lane splitting. In Europe, lane splitting is allowed, where when the traffic is stopped, scooters and motorcycles can go up between the lines of cars to get to the front of the queue because their acceleration is much higher than cars. And I argue that this increases road safety due to the fact that scooters and motorcycles are now visible to the rest of traffic, and when you're in traffic and you're driving in Europe, you're actually thinking about, oh, maybe there's a scooter there, and now it forces you to shoulder check, and it actually forces you to look around to locate these vulnerable road users. In the United States of America, this is not something that you can do except in the state of California. The state of California is the only state that allows lane splitting. Now, the other piece about that is in Europe, there's no right turns at red lights. Okay? No rights on reds in the boroughs in New York City. So it would be interesting to look at the traffic fatalities and traffic crash statistics in New York City and see if this is having an impact on the number of crashes within the city as opposed to Europe. I mean, this is another factor that could influence the number of crashes and whatnot in the United States of America. But what's interesting about the United States of America is this problem has been known for a very long time, that their crash rate, the number of traffic fatalities per 100,000 inhabitants, is astronomically higher than other countries in the world. And they've known this for a long time. 40 years they've known about this, but the United States of America is just fighting an uphill battle to try and get traffic safety measures in place that will begin to reduce the number of traffic fatalities in that country. And they just really haven't done anything about that yet. It still continues that in the United States of America, that more people are killed in traffic crashes every 18 months in that country than the number of soldiers sent to war in the Vietnam conflict between 1963 and 1975. 12 years of battle, and 65,000 American troops died in that Vietnam conflict. 65,000 people are killed in the United States every 18 months. You might think that it would be cause for concern and cause for massive change within the United States of America. I think the other piece that's influencing the United States of America is the independence of each state implementing rules for traffic safety, and it's not a federal organization or coalition that's moving this forward and beginning to bring the needle down on the number of traffic deaths within that country. Okay, elevator fan, is running a red light part of social driving? Elevator fan, it absolutely is part of the problems of social driving. Running red lights, moving through intersections, failing to give the right of way. And again, this is another problem that you're going to face when you're out on the roadways and you're driving. And it's the question that I love asking people, what does a green light mean? Inevitably, people are, well, I can go. Well, I can go. No, you can go if it's safe. If the intersection is blocked, you can't go, okay? So a green light, yes, it means go, but it only means go if the way is clear. Now, here's the other piece that I wanted to mention in terms of traffic safety statistics. I was looking this up this morning. I can't recall why I was looking this up. Oh, I know why I was looking this up. It was, again, the comment on LinkedIn about risk perception and people talking about ice and snow and people thinking that driving on ice and snow is perilous. Again, looking at the United States of America, if you look at the states in the U.S. that have the highest crash rates in the United States, according to states, Mississippi, North Carolina, New Mexico, those are the states that have the highest number of crash rates. The states in the U.S. that have the lowest crash rates, Wisconsin, Vermont, and I want to say Minnesota, but it's not Minnesota. But anyway, it's what I talked about before about people getting upset and excited about driving on snow and ice in the wintertime and the misperception that they're going to die in the wintertime on snow and ice, when the reality is you're going to die on clear roads in the summertime in good weather. That's when most of the traffic crashes happen. It's not in perilous conditions. It's not in inclement weather. It's not when roads are, when visibility is bad. Okay? Many fatal traffic crashes do happen at night though, but in the summertime, not in the wintertime, all right? So the 3 states in the U.S., New Mexico, North Carolina, Mississippi, have the highest crash rates in that country. The states with the winter have the lowest crash rates. So it's exactly what I've been saying about the realities of traffic crashes there. Elevator, okay, Damon, I have been on via Metropolitan Transit case for years about having in place a center running double transit lane using UK road rules, which would make the approaching transit coach look dangerous. Okay, I'm not sure what that is. Maybe you could send me an email and explain that more to me. Carrie, are most of those killed in every 18 months in my country, the United States, vulnerable road users? Carrie, it's very high. The number of vulnerable road users who are killed every 18 months in the United States is very high, and I would need to look up those statistics for you. Maybe you can shoot me an email, rick@smartdrivetest.com, and I'll look up those statistics about the number of vulnerable road users who are killed every 18 months, the percentage of that 65,000 people who are killed there in the United States. My friend Big Mac Sam, hello, my friend. We were talking about defensive driving. We were talking about your country and how terrible your traffic safety is in relation to other countries in the world. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about rear end crashes and whatnot. But it was interesting because, as I was talking about, there was an Australian. He'd moved to the United States and was saying how he thought that speeding contributed to the astronomical traffic fatalities amongst Americans in the United States, that it's over 12 fatalities per 100,000 inhabitants in the United States, whereas in Australia, it's about 4.5 traffic fatalities per 100,000 inhabitants. So it's basically 300% higher in the United States for traffic deaths as opposed to in Australia. And we were trying to hypothesize, the reasons why that is. Okay, that's what we're talking about. We're the worst at everything, it would seem. No, Sam, you're actually really good at getting gold medals at the Olympics. Much better than the rest of the world for sure. But it's interesting looking at traffic safety in the United States of America, because it's an issue that has been around for like 40 years, and it's well noted, it's well documented, but the issue is, why is this issue not being addressed? Okay, what is it? And some of just quickly looking at some of the information on the internet, it was saying, the United States of America is car centered, and there's absolutely no doubt about that. Okay, but that's just one reason. That's not, I mean, it's much more complicated than just that. And it's not the fact that you know, the Australian that was on the channel was saying, you know, Australia polices speeding. They have widespread use of speed cameras. They have widespread use of safety programs and those types of things. You know, it's not speeding. And it's as I've said before, Germany has a lower crash rate than Australia, but they have the Autobahn. So you can't point to Germany and go, oh, look at this. They have the Autobahn and they have higher number of crashes. That's not a true statistic. So why is it that Germany has a lower crash rate amongst the population? Is it because they have a vast, comprehensive public transportation system, or they allow lane splitting? I've been told that in Germany they do zipper merging successfully, which just, you know, is an abomination for me. I just don't think that zipper merging works at all, and it's a complete ill-conceived concept amongst so many people and so many traffic safety professionals and whatnot. But, you know, there you have it. Okay, but it's an interesting question, and of course we're talking about defensive driving and the skills and strategies you can put in place to keep yourself safe when you're out on the roadway and driving. And of course, driving is a social activity, and you have to get along within the arena of social driving. And what skills can you put in place to keep yourself safe? Space management, 2 to 3 second following distance, and how you measure that. It's not 2 to 3 second vehicle lengths or 10 vehicle lengths or whatnot. The reason we measure space in front with time is because time is relative. If you're in the city, it's 4 car lengths. If you go out on the roadway and you increase your speed to 60 miles an hour, it now becomes 10 car lengths. Okay, that's why we measure in speed, or we measure in time. And the way that you do that is you're following the car in front. The car in front goes past a fixed object, a tree, for example, and as soon as that car in front goes past that fixed object, you start counting 1001. 1002, 1003, and you should have a 3 second following distance between you and that vehicle in front. And of course, people are always going to say to you, if you keep a following distance, people are going to cut in. Yes, people are going to cut in every now and again, but they're going faster than you. And again, it goes back to the principles of social driving. Hurry up and go. They want to go faster than you, and they don't want to be around you, so they're going to be gone within a couple of seconds. You just reclaim your space and carry on with your life. All right, always stopping back in traffic, 1 vehicle length. If you can create those 2 driving habits, those 2 driving habits alone will significantly reduce your chances of being involved in a crash. And then you add the other tools of the smarter defensive driving model, which are speed management, communication, and observation. You can put those 4 tools in place, you're going to keep yourself safe on the roadways. Sam, my parked car got hit last month, wrecked my driver's side door, still dealing with that. Yeah, Sam, that's just a pain in the butt. And it's, you know, it's the unfortunate part. I did watch the video. I didn't leave a comment. I meant to. I'm sorry about that. You know, when security cameras, I mean, they're great, but they're not good enough to read a license plate number. And unfortunately, the person hit you and then, you know, did a runner on you. And unfortunately, like you said, you're still dealing with it. You're dealing with your insurance company. You're trying to get your car fixed, right? Carrie, zipper merging does not work well because cars and trucks are different sizes. And all the examples of zipper merging, all the cars are the same size. Carrie, you just hit the nail on the head. Thank you for that. That's exactly right. And that's why it doesn't work, because all the vehicles on the roadway are different sizes, and you throw a semi-truck into the mix with 4 cars beside it, and all of a sudden it's not zipper merging anymore. It's a mishmash. That's just going to go wrong. Dame in the United States confuses the words equality, equity, and equitability. All 3 are closely related, but are not synonyms. Yes, you were absolutely right. Eric, I've seen a lot of lane splitting in Los Angeles. Yes, and Eric, you go to Europe. When I was in Barcelona and Madrid, lane splitting. And then, of course, you get to a corner, and they're parking the scooters, motorcycles on the sidewalk, because the sidewalks are wide to accommodate lots of pedestrians. And there's like 60, 100 scooters and motorcycles lined up along the sidewalks because that's where they park them, right? And very cool. So, you know, as I said to you, I'm a huge advocate. I hate the zipper merge, but on the other hand, I believe that lane splitting increases traffic safety. And I think it just makes people safer, because now car drivers are forced to shoulder check and look and be aware of scooters and motorcycles on the roadway, in combination with not being allowed to turn right on a red light, which may or may not have an impact on traffic safety. We don't know. Elevator, I have seen drivers zipper merge in construction zones. Elevator, yes, they try. But like I said, the problem with zipper merging is either everybody does it, or if one person decides not to do it, the whole thing goes wrong. One person not zipper merging is kind of like a relationship. If one person doesn't want to be in the relationship, it doesn't matter what the other person does. There's not a relationship anymore because the one person doesn't want to be in it. It's the same thing with zipper merging. Okay? If one person doesn't do it, the whole thing goes flat. It doesn't work anymore. Sam, bring the dog. Okay, I'll bring the dog. I'll go get the dog. He's lying over there sleeping. Epic. Furthermore, in the highways, if you miss the exit, go around to the next one. The way you prevent a crash involving the driver's side, which is what happened to my parents in Bridgeport rather. Yes, absolutely. If you miss your exit, go around. Come back. Don't do it. Oh my God, that's what a truck driver did. I saw the dash cam footage, and he just like careened off the roadway and ran into an SUV and caused it to flip like 8 times. All right, so we're going to go get the dog here. 1 second. I'll be right back. Striker dog. Sam wants to see you. Come on. Oh, you the dog. Hello, the dog. Your fans want to see you. There's the dog. There's the lazy dog. Say hi. Striker the dog. He's like, what are you doing? You woke me up. I was having such a good nap. He had his 2 walks today already. So we go to the dog park and walk through the woods and the bush. He fancies himself a woodsman. He actually walked through the creek over onto the other side to see some people today. And they're like, what are you doing, you crazy dog? So yeah, there we go. Yes, see the kiddos. Yeah, he goes to the dog park. He's like the Walmart greeter. He goes and sees all the people and whatnot. He's not too crazy about the other dogs, but he's very crazy about the other people there at the dog park and whatnot, and likes to see the people. So we try to get him not to jump up and whatnot, especially right now because it's mud season, right? And everything's muddy. So all good. Thank you everybody for participating in the live stream. Always a pleasure. And be safe. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great night. All the best. Bye.